I mentioned earlier uncertainty, and that is, I think, one of the things I cannot necessarily do black and white, because
Mhm.
there is not necessarily black and white. But
Mhm.
my colleagues from the communication department didn't want that uncertainty,
Yes.
because then the message gets diluted for them. Okay, for the podcast today, I've decided maybe to be less dealing with uncertainty, maybe a bit more black and white, Chris. So the discussions about the PMT criteria, or the concept even of PMT, those discussions took very much place in the member states committee of ECHA.
Mhm.
And I was chairing that member state committee when we had those discussions. I do acknowledge that for policymakers, there is this need for maybe easier tools than the complex risk assessment. But I see it as a simplification of the world. And yeah, I'm living in a complex world, and I prefer to continue living in a complex world. I think for me, as a risk assessor, is really difficult to accept. They can detect anything. A few molecules can be detected. And when you detect and then publish that I found this substance here and there, you got a lot of non-acceptance in society. It wasn't put into context. It wasn't put into context of risk assessment. So what did you find it? And that so what question is very, very critical. And I think we have moved not only away from, yeah, I can find it and therefore it's a problem, into, with the persistence discussion, it's more like you could find it and therefore it's a problem. Languages do not distinct between risk and hazard. And
Mhm.
if you just raise a hazard, then people are immediately like, okay, no, no, not for me. No, no chemicals for me. And yeah, we will have to live with chemicals. Some of the
Yes.
most toxic ones are natural. So I must say that looking at some of the dossiers that were submitted to ECHA, and also having had discussions with some of the companies that submitted those dossiers, I can understand why regulators are skeptical about industry. There are white ravens, but there are also industries that do not deliver on what they are preaching. And Chris, you mentioned now a key word, regrettable. And we're talking
Mm.
about regrettable substitution is
Mhm.
a concept, but we also, I think, moving into regrettable restriction. Ethanol could be an example, but I think the whole PFAS discussion could lead to regrettable restrictions. A value-free scientist doesn't exist. I think indeed some of the discussions are driven by values. And we need to be willing to be open about what values we are bringing to the table.